I'm really pleased to welcome you to our high-level ministerial session, From Targets to Turbines, the next steps in offshore wind. I'll be your MC and your moderator for the first half of this session. We will have some movement throughout this session, so I beg your forgiveness in advance if we have a little bit of musical chairs going on in the background, but I promise you it will be informative and engaging, and we have lots of exciting news to share with you about our progress. Our purpose of bringing you together is to reaffirm our collective commitment to accelerating offshore wind, which is essential to meeting the pledge to tripling renewables. Today, we will be welcoming new members to the GOWA's global community. We will hear reflections from GOWA's founders, and we will gain insights from the existing members on their own offshore wind commitments, progress made in the last 12 months since joining GOWA, and its launch, and the lessons learned from being a part of this community and future plans. So we have a lot to get through in a short amount of time. So I'd like to welcome our first speaker, His Excellency Dan Jørgensen, Minister for Development, Cooperation and Global Climate Policy from the Government of Denmark. Welcome.
Thank you. From targets to turbines. I like that. Excellencies, friends, it's so good to see you all here. A few weeks ago I had the chance to speak to the man who was in charge of Vindeby. Now, those of you from Denmark know what I'm referring to. Those of you not from Denmark, obviously not. But Vindeby was the name of the first offshore wind farm, not only in Denmark, but on the planet. And he told me about how when it was decided to make this offshore wind farm, people were shaking their heads. I mean, it's difficult enough to make onshore wind. This was back in 1991. To make it offshore, it's expensive, it's complicated, it's difficult. Some would even argue it would be going against the whole industry because it would be a failure. Fortunately, they didn't listen to those voices. Fortunately, the decision makers at that time, the industry, the investors, decided we will do this because if we solve the problems, the challenges, the potential for offshore wind is incredible. The IEA has estimated, and I'm sure Francesco will agree with this number, it's probably your number that they stole, let's be honest, has estimated that you can supply the demand of electricity of the entire planet 18 times with offshore wind. That's the potential. Now, I like to remind people that this is really just about exploiting the forces of nature. I'm from Denmark, so we are Viking countries, you know, 1,000 years ago. But if you think about it, what was it that made the Vikings successful? Some people think it was pure force and violence, but actually it wasn't. A small part of it maybe, but actually it wasn't. It was because they knew how to exploit the forces of nature. The reason why they reached America 500 years before Christopher Columbus, the reason why they managed to go all the way to Greenland, was because they built ships, and not just built ships like anybody did, they made sails. And it took us a long time for them, and it was just as expensive to make a sail as it was to make a boat. But it made it possible for them to travel as far as they did. So, we need to learn from the Vikings. Exploit the wind in new and better ways. Taking the possibilities of harvesting the wind. Even making the wind into a replacement of fossil fuels in the hard-to-abate sectors. So in Denmark, we are planning now hydrogen production in a massive scale. We take the energy from the wind, put it through electrolyzers, make it into hydrogen, make the hydrogen into fluids that you can then use to fly a plane or sail a ship. Sounds like science fiction, but actually it's just science. We know how to do it. Now we need to get it up in scale and down in price, and it will happen. We have so many great proponents of offshore wind here today, both from industry, from finance, from governments. It's precisely 1 year ago that we established GOWA in Sharm el-Sheikh. At that time we were 12 members. Today we will be 30 members. And I'm delighted today to be able to welcome 4 new members to the family. The EU Commission. Let's give them a hand. The state of California. Panama. And Brazil. This is really fantastic news, and thank you so much for being here with us. Listen, this is the most important COP since Paris. Why? Well, first of all, the Paris Agreement tells us that this is where we need to make this a global stock take, where we take status. Where are we now? But even more importantly, look forward. What are we going to do from now and onwards to stay below 1.5? And the core of these negotiations are about how do we get rid of the fossils and replace them with alternative sources of energy, renewable energy. Global offshore wind is at the core of this discussion, and that is also, of course, why this event is extremely important. We're going into the last days of the COP. The renewable target is there on the table. It's being negotiated. I personally feel very confident that we will adopt it, that we will make a strong decision, but we're not there yet. So let's help each other, persuade our friends, persuade other parties, lead by showing the good example. And with those words, I'd like to give the floor to somebody that are leading with a great example, EU's Energy Commissioner, Kadri Simpson. Please.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm delighted to be here today with you because offshore wind is one of the key pillars for our energy transition, and clearly Global Offshore Wind Alliance has become the global platform for cooperation on offshore wind. And I can assure you that the European Commission has been supportive to this alliance since the launch last year, but indeed, today we are going one step further, and I'm very pleased to announce that the European Commission has just become a member of the Global Offshore Wind Alliance. And together we will make offshore wind a real global success story. Offshore renewables now create thousands of high-quality jobs. They also reduce dependencies on fossil fuels, and together with meshed offshore grids, they increase regional security of energy supply. And offshore wind is set to become an indispensable part of our energy mix for a decarbonized global economy. EU member states alone pledged to achieve more than 110 gigawatts of offshore renewables by 2030, and around 317 gigawatts by 2050. And to ensure this progress not only continues but increases, the EU has set out an ambitious legislative framework. With our Trans-European Network for Energy Regulation, we now have a comprehensive planning process for cross-border energy networks, and the Renewable Energy Directive sets the overarching EU target on renewables. This target is by 2030, 42.5%. And we have also adopted a comprehensive framework for streamlining permitting procedures of offshore grids and renewables, and we are currently discussing a targeted revision of our market design, which will also boost investment certainty in renewables. And importantly, the European Commission has made also a proposal for Net Zero Industry Act. And this was proposed to set up a legal framework for supporting offshore structures and creates manufacturing in the EU, and the Act also addresses labor shortage challenges through a net zero skills academies. And beyond legislative developments, the Commission has recently released a European wind power package. This is our action plan to support the development of wind manufacturing in the EU and to ensure good penetration of offshore wind power, our energy system. We have also adopted an EU GREED action plan. And all this to say that Europe is walking the talk. We want to make offshore wind a success in Europe, but also around the world. And we will work with the Global Offshore Wind Alliance to make that a reality. So once again, together we can build on the achievements and knowledge gathered these past decades, and we can continue developing the sector and make sure that transition for the better, brighter future for all is really taking place in the very near future. Thank you.
Commissioner, thank you so much for joining us, and welcome to GOWA. I'd now like to call upon His Excellency Omar Andres Camacho, Minister for Mines and Energy from the Government of Colombia and proud co-chairs of GOWA. Welcome.
Muy buenas tardes a todos y a todas. No sé si I don't know if I can do it in Spanish or it's better to do it in English. Okay. I don't know, and I don't see the equipment for the translation, so much better if I do it in English. But so first of all, the Minister of Mines and Energy extends his apologies because he was not able to attend this meeting due to a conflict on the agenda, also with presidency. So, but instead, this is Juan Carlos, the chief of the regulatory office of the Ministry of Mining and Energy, and it's an honor for me to approach all the audience that is here and also that is connected through online media in this Global Offshore Wind Alliance. This meeting actually represents a valuable space to discuss all the aspects required for the collaboration required for our countries, not only those ones that belongs to GOWA, but also all those other countries that are envisioning offshore wind technologies to be installed in their matrix. We would like to thank sincerely the opportunity to contribute to this unique platform where leaders and experts all around the world are all together in order to discuss the challenges of offshore wind technologies. The minister is also excited about sharing the experiences that Colombia, the experiences and the goals, and of course the challenges that Colombia has faced towards our offshore wind technology implementation. Currently, and you will see that today in our pavilion next door from 12:45, this is going to be, we are going to hold our releasing of the offshore wind licitation for the companies that will be participating in the development of the first 1 gigawatt, all the way we are lucky, 4 gigawatts of offshore wind technologies, and we expect that we will expect to see all the infrastructure already developed in the upcoming years. Some of the challenges what we are facing, and just will take just one more minute, and this is ports industry. This is something that we will definitely need to develop, and we are looking forward with GOWA and also with other institutions, agencies, and embassies that are collaborating with us to develop all the required aspects to develop our infrastructure in the ports industry. Also, this is not going to happen if we don't match the offshore wind technologies with the other forms of energy, let's say hydrogen, for example, and also how to integrate that into our grid, of course. Then those are like the main three challenges that I will just to summarize. Thank you everybody for inviting us to this panel and also to collaborate with us. Thanks.
Thank you for being with us. And I'll now move on swiftly to invite our next speaker, with great pleasure, Mr. Francesco Le Camara, Director General, International Renewable Energy Agency. Welcome.
Thank you and welcome at the Global Hub for Renewable Energy for Energy Transition. I think this is a special day for ARENA, honestly speaking. So why? Because we see that where we have been planting seeds, flowers are coming. So, you know, in this world where we have initiatives on initiatives, see that the initiative at producing results is not always happening. Yeah? So just listen to the word of Dan say how many other members are coming to GOWA. How we are starting to see Colombia, some plant be realized. It makes me happy. And, you know, listen to you and try to understand how I can assess all the progress made from the ARENA point of view. My reflection today is on how we can put all the initiatives that we are launching, where ARENA is part, trying to work together and not in silos. So if we just look this morning, we came this morning presenting at ministerial level the APRA, the African Partnership for Renewable Energy, where we have as dimension, as a target, the continent. Then we went to launch our Alliance of Utilities. You know, we at ARENA, we believe there is no possible to scale up and speed up the renewable deployment without making structural changes in the infrastructure that support the energy system. So we have worked with I don't remember now the number, about 30 utilities from all the world, because the dialogue with them is very, very important. And I really I take profit having ministers, vice president here with me, that we are calling for this COP address the multilateral financial institutions, make it clear to them they have to give priority in their funding to the reshaping and the strengthening of the infrastructure needed to have more renewables into the grid. So I hope that the friends here may listen to this call and make their negotiator coming with something on this. So my engagement will be as ARENA, that we will continue to work. The progress is astonishing. We have targets that are really ambitious on this respect. And we also have a reflection. After this, we are going to launch the Alliance for Industry Decarbonization. We have 63 companies with targets that will impress you if you are going to participate to this meeting. So we have to try to understand how we can do this in a more systematical way. I stop here because we have many speakers, and I think I'm just here to listen, learn, and try to facilitate your work. Thank you very much.
I'd now like to invite Mr. Ben Backwell, CEO of the Global Wind Energy Council, to take the floor. Over to you, Ben.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for coming here to the Global Renewables Hub. Your Excellencies, distinguished friends and colleagues, it's such a happy day for us. I mean, first of all, to congratulate Denmark and Dan for this remarkable leadership over the last 6 months. We met in New York, I think, the last time and talked about the tripling. Francesco, I mean, incredible leadership from Irina this year, and Thomas and your whole team as well. You know, it's been such a pleasure working together since Sharm el-Sheikh to build this alliance, and thanks everyone, you know, to everyone on the team as well, from Denmark, from Irina, from GWEC, and first of all, welcome to the new countries which have come on board. I'm so happy for all of you to join. I'm particularly happy about Brazil, which is a country which is very close to my heart personally, but very happy to have all of you join. And congratulations to Colombia for launching today the first offshore wind tender. I mean, it's remarkable. You know, we started working with you, you know, a couple of years ago, and we're already launching an offshore wind tender, and we can see this action from so many countries. Portugal as well, advancing in such an incredible way. I've been on a bit of a world tour the last few months. It's probably why I look like I do now. But Australia, again, incredible progress. I've been in the US, I've been in Brazil, I've been in many places where the action is happening, and it's just incredible to see. We think we are on track for 323 gigawatts of offshore wind to be built by 2030. As you remember, the GOWA target was 380 gigawatts, and we actually have targets from countries already which are far in excess of that. So the question now is getting it done and working around these areas. And as you know, GOWA really has three priority work streams. One is around planning, permitting, but that's also about communities and working with stakeholders and getting things done. The other is around financing, and we held a very successful GOWA finance roundtable yesterday with some of the members and with MDBs, and we had a very fruitful discussions with pension funds. And the third one is around supply chain, and yesterday GWEC launched its big supply chain report with Boston Consulting Group. The conclusions are fairly, I wouldn't say worrying, but it definitely is something we need to have front and center if we're going to avoid any bottlenecks as we deploy these huge amounts of wind. And I think the common theme in all of this is cooperation, collaboration, global cooperation and global collaboration, but also cooperation regionally, with communities, with stakeholders, with government. And that's what GOWA is all about. We need interregional cooperation, we need global cooperation, we need global supply chains, and we need to be able to get a hold of the material and the equipment that we need when we need it. So we need more cooperation, not less cooperation. So that's what GOWA is all about. I think we've been really successful building the alliance. Now we need to get to work, and we are really looking forward to the next year. The tripling will bring even new challenges, but those are challenges that we want to have. So I just think, as Dan said, this is the most important COP since Paris, and I think everybody can feel the positive energy around us. So thank you again, and welcome.
Thank you so much, Ben. We're now going to hear from our new members. So it gives me great pleasure to invite Mr. Minister Tiago Burrell, Energy Transition Secretary from the Government of Brazil. I think I completely got that in the wrong order, so I hope you will forgive me. We've known each other a while. Please come and take the stage, and a very, very warm welcome.
Thank you so much, Your Excellencies, Francesco, my dear friend Elbia, powerful leader in the wind industry in Brazil. You have made such results in transforming our energy mix, so congratulations, happy to have you here. Ben, and all the business and political leaders here. Thank you so much for opening the space and for welcoming us to this community. So far at this COP, we are trying to show our strong as ever commitment to being a protagonist in the energy transition. We have done so much, but we want to do much more. We convene here today for a common objective, which is to boost the development and deployment of clean and renewable energies, and as a consequence, strengthening the fundamentals, the foundations for a more sustainable future. Brazil acknowledges the need for speeding up the energy transition towards a cleaner energy mix. In this context, offshore wind is part of the portfolio of viable solutions that we need to deploy. The creation of an international community for sharing best practices, for collaboration, as proposed here in GOWA and the Global Offshore Wind Alliance, is to be commended for its value in promoting knowledge sharing and collaboration. And we will contribute, Brazil will contribute with its experience, lessons learned, and we are very open to this dialogue and collaboration. Brazil is already a leader in decarbonizing the energy mix. Last year, 90%, almost 90% of our electricity supplied came from renewable energy. And this protagonism is not just because we have so great winds, as Albia knows very well in our country. It's the result of a regulatory framework that is stable, clear, safe for investors, a long-standing tradition of respecting contracts. It is also the result of the hard work of important leaders in the industry and in the government, such as, again, Albia, with her strategic vision and leading a strong industry in the country. The numbers of the wind industry in Brazil are impressive. It's almost 30 gigawatts of installed capacity already, over 900 wind farms located in 12 different states. Our priority is to continue investing in clean and renewable energy without getting away from the so needed reliability and energy security for our development. With this goal, Minister Alexandre Silveira and myself, are working very hard in collaboration with the Congress, and last week we managed to approve at the lower house the legal framework for offshore wind leasing in the seabed leasing in the country. We are removing the barriers for the development of this new and promising frontier for renewable energies in Brazil. We want to ensure and secure energy legal security and clear rules for leasing seabed areas for the development of offshore wind. And we are developing public policy and government and public-private collaboration for ensuring coordination in this process, as we know it's so much needed. In that way, we will strengthen the over 90 offshore wind projects that are already in Brazil under permitting process as we account, and the numbers are growing. We want to ensure that the 700 gigawatt of offshore wind potential that we have along our coast is producing clean and sustainable energy for Brazil and for the world. That way, we want to transform our country for better, and that what brings us here to the Global Offshore Wind Alliance. That's why we are here. So count on us, and let me close with a simple message from our Minister, Alexandre Silveira. This alliance must never get away from the core commitment to ensuring that the results of the development of offshore wind industry is perceived as social development in a just and inclusive way. So thank you so much. Happy to be part of this community.
Please forgive us, we're going to have a slight pause for a photo opportunity. Can I have Ben Backwell, Director General, La Camera, and Minister Jorgensen back on stage, please, for the photo opportunity. Could we have on stage Mr. David Hochschild, Chair of the California Energy Commission, and could we have Dr. Ligia Castros de Donés, Climate Change Director, Ministry of Environment, Panama, on stage as well for the official photo.
Everyone, because also Rivera came up. So.
Okay. Please, could we please have Her Excellency Teresa Ribera, Third Vice President of the Spanish Government and Minister of Ecological Transition and Demographic Challenge for Spain, join us? Can we have all of our GOWA Her Excellencies join us on stage? Thank you. Thank you so much. I think we've got the snap we wanted. Thank you very much. If I could ask you to take your seats again, and we'll commence with a few more speeches and then transition into the panel discussion. Thank you all so much. I'd now like to welcome Mr. David Hochschild, Chair of California Energy Commission, State of California, to say a few words. Thank you.
All right, how's everyone doing? Okay, welcome friends. I'm David Hochschild with the California Energy Commission. First of all, can we give a big round of applause to Amisha and Ben, the whole GOWA team, for everything you've done. In the state of California, our grid today is 60% powered by clean, carbon-free electricity. Alternative energy is the wrong word to use to describe renewables. Fossil is an alternative energy now. And the main theme that's been on my heart and my mind this past few months and years has been the theme of finish the job. Finish the job. And to me, that's what offshore wind represents. We're in a unique position in the state of California. We deployed the very first utility scale solar project in the world, the first terrestrial wind project in the world, the first electric vehicle, energy storage system, the first energy codes and standards. We have seen technologies go from being little seedlings to now some of the biggest industries and fastest growing industries in the world. And there is something very special and very powerful about this technology and about this industry. It really does complement what we already have out there and provide us an opportunity to build something really big. And I want to remind us, the Chinese word for crisis, Weiji, is just two other words put together: danger and opportunity. There's always opportunity inside the crisis. And in the climate crisis, we have the opportunity to create something really, really powerful with this technology. So the state of California, our peak load is 52 gigawatts, and we have made a state commitment to do 25 gigawatts of offshore wind, okay? And we're gonna make it happen. We're all in on this. We believe in it. We believe in the promise it can deliver and the jobs it can deliver. And I think one of the beautiful things about coming to the COP is you see how many other people are dedicated and collaborating towards the same end. It's really, for me, really, I don't want to say energizing, but invigorating to see that and to lean in together. And I want to just commend you again for starting something just a year ago, and now to have over 300 gigawatts of commitments is incredible, and we're proud to be a part of it. Thank you for all you do. Thank you, guys.
I'd now like to welcome Dr. Ligia Castro de Donés, Climate Change Director, Ministry of Environment from Panama.
Buen día en representación. Ven, pa' que- bueno, me van a ayudar con el inglés.
I'll be doing some
Estoy en
translation for
representación de
Dr.
la
Ligia.
Secretaría de Energía de Panamá. Estamos muy entusiasmados de incorporarnos.
In representation of our Secretariat for Energy, we're very much excited to join GOWA.
El 80% de la matriz energética de Panamá es energía verde, pero en época lluviosa. En época seca baja al 60%.
Around 80% of our energy matrix currently in Panama
Por-
is used in renewables, although that capacity tends to drop around 60 when we have our dry season.
Porque el componente hidroeléctrico es muy importante. De ahí que a principio del próximo año haremos licitación a largo plazo, tanto de eólica como de solar.
Since hydropower is a big part of our energy matrix, we're trying to increase our variability in the matrix, and so we are creating for next year new licitations for wind and solar energy.
Y se trabaja también en un hub de hidrógeno verde. Y escuchándoles acá, teniendo mar territorial tanto en la costa atlántica como en la pacífica, sería una muy buena oportunidad de que se pudiera trabajar un proyecto que junto al hub de hidrógeno verde estuviera articulado con energía eólica en territorio marino.
Along with our upcoming green hydrogen strategy, and we plan to become a hub, creating offshore wind in both of our coasts, both in the Atlantic and in the Pacific, and due to our ease of access to both coastlines, it would be very interesting and it would be an honor to develop projects in both shorelines in order to complement and to create more experiences of the successes of offshore wind.
Muy bien. Entusiasmados de estar y manos a la obra.
Very much excited. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'd now like to invite Her Excellency Teresa Ribera, Third Vice President of the Spanish Government and Minister for the Ecological Transition and the Demographic Challenge from the Government of Spain. A very warm welcome.
Good morning, everybody. I'm very happy. We are more and more, and it is a great thing that we can gather here. Very much happy to see Tina, Ligia, Anna, Kadri. Energy is also women power. And I think that this is great in these moments of the energy transition and access to energy that we need to ensure, because this is going to be the cup to fix this energy thing. To say that we need to ensure a sharp decline of fossil fuels and a high entry into power of renewable energy solutions, including offshore. And I was thinking when I was hearing Dan, it's true. Columbus, as many other of the great adventurers of the world, went out through the sea to find new worlds. So I was wondering why we were so much delayed in these offshore wind opportunities when Spain is such a maritime country, a country looking into the sea, a country understanding that sea matters, and a country understanding that renewable energy matters. We adopted our offshore wind strategy back in 2021. We discovered that there was a challenge to be overcome. The sea was deep. So we needed to deploy floating technologies. And we are on track to deploy many different pilot projects, new technologies, new patents, so to ensure the resilience, the capacity, and the possibilities to make full use of our wind in the sea. We worked together with the different private partners. We understood that it was good that we had this planning of the maritime space, so to ensure that things could happen in an ordered manner, with the support of the local communities in the coastal areas. And now we are ready to go into the new regulations and into the tenders. And it is fantastic because, as it has been said by many, we are crafting a new map that would ensure that we can go through this smooth but quick, intense and powerful energy transition everywhere. So I'm very happy to be here, and I'm very happy to see how this idea is growing and growing and growing and making reality how we can overcome the difficulties and how we can get full advantage of the magnificent benefits that these solutions could provide to all of us. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'd now like to welcome Her Excellency Tina van der Straten from the Minister of Energy, Belgium, to take the stage. Thank you.
Thank you. Very happy also to be here. Last year was the first time you told your anecdote about the Vikings, and it's still true. It's women and it's Vikings. So that's how we make the world turn around. Very happy also to see new members, and very happy to see also that we have these new members from South America. Very happy to have you on board. We need to have countries from all over the world to indeed, as Teresa said, draw this new map. In Europe, we are very committed. We are building out our offshore wind turbines in the North Sea as being a power hub, but also extending it to the other sea basins. I think that every country in every member state of the European Union who is bordering a sea has now plans into place. And we are also working, we are beginning with the North Sea countries, but we can extend that to better plan when we will tender so that we can give also some reliance to the market that yes, build your wind turbines, we have space, we will put them there. It's not about Europe alone, as Anna we talked yesterday, that it's also about our neighboring countries and how we connect to our neighboring countries, because climate security and energy security is what we need. It's how we can be resilient as a planet, and as Teresa said, energy is the way to do it. It's a very important COP. It's an energy COP, and with all of you here together, we can make it work. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'd now like to call upon stage His Excellency Eamon Ryan, Minister for the Environment, Climate and Communications from Ireland. Lovely to see you.
Inspired by St. Brendan the Navigator, we are working in this COP, we have concept note. The critical thing is that we switch finance from fossil to clean, particularly to the developing countries in the world, where it's not going. We know the numbers. Irene and IEA say 4 to 4.5 trillion early next decade per annum, and some 1.5 trillion of that has to go to developing countries, not including China. And to do that, we need to change the regulatory system, or de-risk the currency risks, regulatory risks, grid, skills issues, and so on. The truth is that that's not just an issue for the developing countries, because we know in the developed world, we're not building fast enough. There isn't a sufficient spread in the price between fossil and clean. I heard Ms. Singh from IRENA the other day give the figure there's a 7-point base gain if you're renewables, if you're clean, that needs to be higher. But the truth is, I think, that already and still, fossil gets financed cheaper than clean. The big fossil companies, they're huge, have huge asset bases of proven resources that they can use as collateral to get cheaper loans for more fossil. Our biggest wind companies, as big as they are, Dan, and as good as they are tiny in that comparison. So we need in this COP a really strong global stocktake direction, decision, which changes this financing reality for the world. There cannot be a situation in the world where we have to switch off the fossils and it gets lower cost loans for everywhere, developing and developed the same. So we need to devise mechanisms where we can give the same sort of guarantees, de-risking mechanisms that brings down the cost of offshore renewable wind if we're really to get the scale of change we need. And I think we should be looking for text that reflects that in the decisions we have to write early next week. Up to St. Brendan.
Thank you very much. I'm now going to pass the floor to Her Excellency Ana Fonteira Goba, the Secretary of State for Energy and Climate from the Government of Portugal. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Good morning to you all. It's really a pleasure to see that we are more and more each day because we need to act fast. And this is tough, of course. These are uncharted waters. And so we need to work together in a network to find our way. And we are doing it, as Teresa said. The title there is spot on. So now it's the time to move from targets to turbines. In Portugal, we are trying to do that. I heard here that we are moving at an incredible pace. And I would have to agree with that. I think we are doing quite well, as all the other countries are actually doing, because we know that this is the way to move forward. In Portugal, we are doing it. We are investing in offshore because there's a business case for it. We have the industrial demand. We know that if we produce clean electricity in a stable, reliable way, 24 hours, 7 days a week, we attract industries. From that green electricity, we can produce green hydrogen. From green hydrogen, we can produce green steel, ammonia, e-methanol, e-SAFs. So that is the way to phase out fossil fuels. That is the way to phase out fossil fuels to ensure security of supply, to create jobs. So in Portugal, and I know that in many other countries, because we are working together, talking to each other, we have been taking careful steps to involve local communities, to discuss with stakeholders, to make sure that, for instance, the definition of the areas where we are then having the leases are areas that have a consensus among local populations as well, because we know that investors need predictability and stability. We have been looking carefully at our auction model, and there we have been working with the industry. In Portugal, we launched our first tender. We are actually in the initial stage of that first tender. We have an expression of interest that received 50 consortia that are interested in our offshore auction market. So 50. This shows that the industry is engaged, the industry is responding, and also now it's the duty of the governments to make sure that we make this happen. This alliance is the right place for us to cooperate further and to make offshore wind, floating offshore wind that is so challenged, actually a reality. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'd now like to call upon His Excellency Michel Heerdere, Vice Minister, Director General for Climate and Energy from Netherlands, for your intervention. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and it's a real pleasure to be here. We're going to enter a phase of a virtuous cycle. With a tripling requirement of renewables, we will bring down cost of wind energy. And by bringing down the cost of wind energy, we're getting more and more wind energy. And this is going to be a decisive COP to get that transition going. I want to share with you a few of our recent experiences. As the Netherlands, we were the chair of the North Sea Energy Corporation, a corporation of all the countries along the North Sea. Tina mentioned, of course, Belgium, but of course also Germany, Denmark, and the UK. Together, we want to launch the North Sea as an energy power hub for Northwestern Europe, 300 gigawatts of wind energy. And this is a great opportunity and at the same time a great challenge. What we see in the recent period is that we need to look at system integration more and more. If we want to do this, we have to look at the whole value chain of wind energy. We've seen some wind turbine creators and producers that were in trouble. but they don't need to be when we lay out clear, concrete roadmaps how we want to roll out wind energy. And it requires a lot of components in the system. Modern wind turbines are as high as the Eiffel Tower, 1,000 feet, 300 meters. And if you want to do that, you have to really, really plan well. You have to be able to have in the ports already the infrastructure available to create such large wind turbines. You have to create a grid at sea, and governments can step in to do that, to make the auctions and the tenders easier for the private sector. If you lay out a grid as a government, then the private sector can easily connect into that system. So system integration is key. That is what we saw in Northwestern Europe, and we try and want to share also our experiences with you to also to learn from you. And the second experience that we had this year is also on the delicate balance between wind energy and biodiversity and other concerns at the North Sea. More and more, if we are expanding wind energy, we also find that there are other uses of the sea. Of course, the marine environment. And there's another COP, which is equally important as this COP, which is the COP on biodiversity. And we can cooperate. We can bring a green future, which is also a biodiverse future. And we can do so by doing really innovative tenders that include the concern for biodiversity. For instance, we now ask all the wind turbines to put off their wind turbines when the migratory birds come along. So there will be fewer birds that lose their lives when they come along. And we include it in our tenders. And in that way, we can have biodiversity and energy transition go hand in hand. That was the second lesson that we had this year with our friends at the North Sea. And the final lesson that I want to say is on innovation and the supply chains. What we see is that we need strong, stable and diverse supply chains. And we can, by our auction design, look very carefully what we want from the wind turbine producers. Do we just want the cheapest ones, or do we want the ones that have ecological good designs? Do we want to have the ones that integrate into the grid well and that are able to supply industries with types of energy that match their demand patterns? So we really have to look at innovation, and through our tenders we can give signals to the producers of wind turbines globally to produce what we really need to make the biodiverse and energy transition together. It's a real pleasure to be here, and we look forward to continue the conversation within GOWA. Thank you all.
Thank you very much. I'd now like to invite Mr. Shishini Kihara, Deputy Director General from the Ministry of Economy, Trade and Industry from the Government of Japan. Thank you so much for being with us.
Good afternoon, everybody. Obviously, this alliance member countries are all maritime countries. We heard the great story of the Vikings from the Danish and also the Columbus from the Spain. And I hope everybody likes from Japan the story of sushi. Japan has harnessed the underwater rich resource, the fish resource, for hundreds of years. And now we are going to capture the rich resource on the surface, the wind. So Japan is now working hard to make the renewable energy our main power source. And since the Fukushima accident 12 years ago, we already doubled our renewable energy. And we have a goal of doubling again by 2030. So that's quadrupling in 20 years. And when we talk about renewable energy, Japan is a small flatland country, so we look into the offshore wind option. So we already changed the law. We have a new act for offshore wind, and we have a vision for the offshore wind industry. And we have the target of 10 gigawatt by 2030 and 30 to 45 gigawatt by 2040. And in the pipeline, we already have 4.6 gigawatt projects in the pipeline. But we're now looking more far out into the sea. We have been working in the territorial ocean, but now we have to go further beyond to the EEZ. That is the very deep water, steep water. So floating offshore wind is the option. We're working on 4 things. One is we're looking into the institutional studies to have some kind of possible legislation to expand into the EEZ. Second, we're going to formulate targets for the floating offshore wind turbines. And three, we will mobilize resource to facilitate research and development. We already dispatched $1 billion equivalent of Green Innovation Fund in this area. And number four, we are aiming to proceed with demonstration of these projects, one of it being the 10 megawatt class turbine to be built pretty soon. And hearing all these discussion today, this is very, I feel the enthusiasm around this offshore wind today. And Japan would like to collaborate with other countries towards the introduction and scaling up of offshore wind. And we have to build global supply chain. We also have to work on the technology development. And there's a lot of area to room to develop good standardization for this sophisticated technology. So with all that, Japan is ready to contribute to all this offshore wind. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And we'll now hear from Ms. Shannon Estonas, Assistant Secretary, Department of the Interior from the United States of America. Welcome, Shannon.
Thank you, GOWA. What an inspiring hour this has been. The United States, the Biden administration, is committed to growing a clean energy economy. Onshore and offshore wind, geothermal, wave and tidal energy will help communities across the country be part of the climate solution while creating good-paying union jobs. The Biden-Harris administration is taking an all-of-government approach toward ambitious renewable energy goals, including to increase production on public lands and waters, to deploy 30 gigawatts of offshore wind by 2030, 15 gigawatts of floating offshore wind by 2035. Since the start of the Biden-Harris administration, the department has held 4 offshore wind lease auctions, which have brought in almost $5.5 billion in high bids, including record-breaking sales off the coast of New York, New Jersey, the Gulf of Mexico, and the Pacific Ocean. And we continue to explore opportunities offshore across the country. On the topic of policy framework development, Interior is working closely with other agencies to creatively and effectively meet our regulatory responsibilities as we build this clean energy economy. For example, our Bureau of Ocean Energy Management has collaborated with the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration to build an ocean model for the Gulf of Mexico to find areas that have the least conflict with other uses and the lowest environmental impact. On the topic of economic resilience and industry success, the most important role Interior can play is to contribute to a steady stream of project opportunities to support and provide predictability for financing, supply chain, workforce, and other economic considerations. In the U.S., we know that the industry will benefit from strong labor involvement, strong supply chains, including U.S.-based supply chains, and the early involvement of communities, which I've heard a lot about this morning, including tribal and indigenous communities who are key partners in our efforts to boost the clean energy economy. And finally, on the topic of environmental stewardship, Interior, which is also a regulatory agency, is committed to stewarding the new renewable energy industry while meeting our obligations to protect biodiversity and habitat, including, for example, the protection of threatened and endangered species, migratory birds, and marine life. In the U.S., the clean energy sector has faced challenges before, but with the support of the public and private sectors, we've been able to overcome them. We're confident that as we face new challenges, we'll be able to overcome them as well and meet the moment we are in. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your interventions. As you are all aware, GOWA is a multi-stakeholder alliance. So I'd now like to shift the focus a little bit and invite some of our broader members to take the floor. I'd like to welcome Ms. Kaki Andrews, Chief Strategy Officer of Ocean Conservancy, to share a few words about her GOWA experience. Thank you so much.
good afternoon. As she said, I'm Kaki Andrews with Ocean Conservancy. We were the first nonprofit member of the Global Offshore Wind Alliance, and we're happy to be here. Ocean Conservancy is the co-lead of the offshore renewable energy sector within the UNFCCC's Marrakesh Partnership for Global Climate Action, which is called for installing 380 gigawatts of offshore wind capacity. We support the rapid, responsible, and just deployment of offshore wind. Rapid, we've heard it, we got to triple the deployment of renewable offshore energy. We can feel the wheels catching related to offshore wind, as we've heard from all the ministers, as this is a technology and a solution that is being implemented across the globe and is gaining speed. Responsible, we have to make this work for the ocean. The ocean has absorbed 90% of the carbon that we have spewed out since the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. We believe that we can and must deploy offshore renewable energy quickly, but also in a way that is a positive for biodiversity for the ocean. The ocean has given us a lot, and we need to make sure we're protecting it as we deploy offshore wind energy. And then just, most of the offshore wind in the world has been developed in the developed world. This is a solution that needs to be accelerated in the developing world. That's why we are calling for a $10 billion concessionary financing fee to help accelerate this solution in the developing world that has biodiversity and environmental safeguards attached to it, so we can address the climate crisis and the biodiversity crisis hand in hand, and we stand ready to help make that happen. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Before we move on to our next session of panelists, I just want to introduce our final intervention. With great pleasure, I'd like to welcome His Excellency Sebastian Burduja, I hope I've said that correctly, Minister of Energy from the Government of Romania. A very warm welcome.
Thank you very much, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. It's a great pleasure to be here. Thanks for very properly pronouncing my name. We could adopt you in Romania. It's really a big honor to be here because Romania joined this year, this wonderful alliance. And for us, it's an important year because by the end of it, and there's not much left, we have committed to adopting offshore wind legislation. And we have a very strong draft. It's currently being approved by government, and it will then move to Parliament. And we hope to see it enacted by January 1st. Of course, all this was started by my friend Virgil Popescu, the previous Minister of Energy, whom I am deeply grateful to. And I think we have every shot to be the first country in the Black Sea to develop offshore wind. Of course, the timeline is aiming at 2032, 2033. We hope that by 2025 in the summer we will have a study of the entire area that will essentially identify go-to areas for investors and speed up the process so that when the investor is ready to come and invest, they will just move to implementation. Essentially, all the environmental permitting should be done before that, and that should really accelerate things. We can't talk about transition without transmission. And I think it's very important to point out that we're also working on an innovative project, direct current interconnector from East Romania to West Romania. This is supposed to bring all the extra energy produced by offshore wind in the Black Sea, plus 2 additional large-scale reactors close to Constanța, all the way to Hungary and further into Western Europe. Thereby also reducing dependency on other sources of energy from other parts of the world that are a lot less reliable than Europe is today. That project is also scheduled to begin probably next year and go through 2029, 2030. So here we have it. We have a huge potential in the Black Sea. So this is a message for you all who represent the private sector. The World Bank studied it, and it's at 76 gigawatts. It's truly amazing. And another feature of the Black Sea is that it's relatively shallow for a long distance away from the shore, which means you can put up fixed windmills in the Black Sea without incurring all the costs from floating wind, and far enough from the shore that you don't hurt the tourism, which is quite active by the Black Sea shore. So I think all the premises are there for a lot of success in Romania. You'll hear more about it in the years to come. I welcome very much this alliance, as it allows us, as we move on to this path, to learn from best experiences, best practices around the world. In fact, the law was written with a lot of help from the State Department, the World Bank, the Netherlands, some of the other Nordic countries. And we just learn as we go along, and we learn from countries that are further advanced. One last point, Romania does have the largest port on the Black Sea. The Constanța port is by far the largest and the deepest port. So as we think about developing offshore wind in our region, we hope that Constanța will become a hub for supplying much of the parts that are needed to build out offshore wind farms. It would be a shame to depend on imports from other parts of the world that are very far away. And I know that resilience is a key word, and self-dependency essentially. So for us in Europe, I think we should become a major production hub in the years to come. Thank you once again. Congratulations for this wonderful event, and please count on Romania to serve as a good example on its own in the years to come. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. I'm now going to hand over to Climate Ambassador of Denmark, Thomas Anker Christensen of Denmark, to share a bit about a new initiative being launched today. And I'd also like to welcome alongside him Mr. Felix William Fortubella, Undersecretary at the Department of Energy for the Government of Philippines. Welcome.
It's a hard act to follow all these very energetic ministers, but I think this second act of our event is a really important one too, and we're so happy to welcome the Philippines amongst us as well, and we hope, Wimpy, to see you as a member of this alliance at some stage. But what we are going to talk about now is one of those aspects of building the offshore wind industry that is really important, and that is the question of the skilled labor, the workforce that we need at scale to build all the gigawatts of offshore wind that we have talked about until now. According to the Boston Consulting Group, by 2030 there will be a global shortage of 7 million skilled workers needed for the necessary climate and energy projects, such as installing solar panels, heat pumps, electric car charging stations, and not at least wind farms. And that's why we're looking very positively at working with the government of the Philippines and other governments on looking into whether there's a prospect for launching a jobs initiative to complement, in a way, what we're doing in GOWA. The Jobs for Renewable Energy idea aims to help accelerate the reskilling and upskilling of workers for the renewable energy industry. And the focus would be the definition of training standards and by making training scalable. And that's really what we're looking at, aligning the needs of the industry with the skills development efforts worldwide, and thereby also creating a flexible and globally capable renewable energy labor pool. And we need to work on expanding and promoting the globally recognized certificates to ensure that skilled workers meet the international standards that the industry needs. And that's why I'm so happy to welcome you, Undersecretary Wimpy, from the Philippines, because we know that the Philippines is really a front runner in this area. I will unfortunately have to abandon you, Wimpy, and leave you alone on the stage, because I have a date with the Crown Prince of Denmark and I can't leave him down. And that's at the other end of this very, very expansive campus that we're having here. So I'm really, really sorry, but you're in the good hands of all the colleagues of IRENA and the Global Offshore Wind Alliance, GWEC, and we really look forward to continuing this engagement with you. So thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Ambassador. No problem. So I'll transfer there because I'm alone now.
Please do.
So, again, good afternoon, everyone. At 12:35 today, the Philippines just experienced a magnitude 5.9 earthquake. It's tectonic. It's a bit west of Manila. But it seems that everything's fine because I'm in charge of the resiliency of the energy sector. And the reports are, yes, they have power still. And indeed, the Philippines is very resilient. So we also have, among all those, that the Philippines is really one of the most, among the countries that are most vulnerable to the climate risks, because we have an average of 20 tropical cyclones annually. And in the past 10 years, we have experienced the strongest typhoons. We also suffered a record heat index of 51 degrees Celsius in 2021. So besides affecting our country's food supply, the challenges are indeed great because it affects the smooth flow of business and the business operations that is essential to our country's growth. So how to choose to respond will have massive repercussions on the generations yet to come. So this is the context why the Philippines is indeed active. Climate change is now up, front, and center of our energy sector and development planning. This is the statement of the President himself, and to implement this, our government pursues an ambitious goal of increasing the share of renewables, not as installed capacity, but in the generation mix, to 35% by 2030 and 50% by 2040. And that is the minimum. In accelerating our green targets, enabling policies that open new opportunities for international investments have been laid out. First, the Philippines now allows 100% foreign ownership of renewable energy technologies in geothermal, biomass, solar, wind, ocean, and tidal wave. The change happened during COP27. Our Philippine Energy Plan charts a transformative direction towards attaining a clean energy future. It prioritizes utilizing our country's indigenous energy sources, included offshore wind and floating solar in our renewable energy portfolio, and emphasizes the adoption and rollout of electric vehicles. These goals are anchored on a robust private sector investments. In the previous Philippine Energy Plan 2020 to 2040, which does not yet include the offshore wind investments, we have estimated a $95 billion required renewable energy investments. So that's also the minimum. So in implementing our blueprint for our renewable energy development, we will create not only the financing opportunities, but also the quality and green jobs by taking stock of our most important asset, our human capital. By doing so, we will reassess, recalibrate, and retool our workforce to remain competitive and relevant in the global shift to alternative energy development and technological advancements. We are adopting a whole-of-nation strategy in the right skilling and upskilling of our Filipino workforce to prepare for these green jobs. We will pursue international certifications for green jobs so that our skilled workforce will be globally recognized. Our commitment to attain global competitiveness is founded in the implementation of skills and competency mapping development programs. This will assist Filipino workers to acquire the necessary technological skills to support the growth of the portfolio of the renewable energy locally and globally. The International Labour Organization and the IRENA and other development partners are helping design the international certification process. We encourage other countries to look into this as well and consider this very important undertaking. So aside from offshore wind and workforce, we're also looking into the support to the supply chain, considering whatever we have, including our mineral deposits. Considering that the Philippines lands, 30% of which are mineralized. So that's the potential. And that's why we are really keen on giving these positive inputs out to our global partners, because the Philippines is one in addressing this very important crisis. Thank you very much at mabuhay po tayong lahat.
Don't go too far away, because I'm going to call you back up on stage. I'm now going to hand over to Dr. Roland Roche, Director in Innovation and Technology Center from IRENA, to take you through the next panel. Roland, pleasure to hand over to you.
Thank you very much for this nice introduction. Dear Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, friends, welcome to the discussion on fostering a skilled workforce for offshore wind energy. We are honored to have ministers and representatives from both countries and the private sector gathered here today to explore the vast potential of green job creation and the indispensable role of a well-skilled workforce to meet the industry demands of the offshore wind energy sector. Having a workforce that is not only well-trained but also adaptable to the dynamic needs of the renewable energy sector is paramount. This brings us to the heart of our discussion today, which revolves around upskilling and reskilling of offshore wind labor pool, as well as the standardized certifications that are essential for this important sector. I'm therefore delighted to come back during our panel discussion to the Jobs for Renewable Energy initiative, a global certification scheme for skilled workforce in the offshore wind industry. This capacity building initiative is designed to be a game changer, providing internationally recognized proof of technical and operational qualification for workers in the offshore wind sector. Jobs for Renewable Energy aims to ensure that our workforce is not only certified, but possesses the skills and knowledge necessary to contribute significantly to the success of offshore wind projects. I encourage our panelists to share their insights and experiences on this matter by discussing together strategies that will ensure that our workforce remains at the forefront of technological advancements, as well as initiatives that have proven successful in enhancing the skills and capabilities of the workforce in the renewable energy sector. Without further ado, let's begin this conversation on shaping the future of green jobs and resilient skilled workforce. I would now like to invite our speakers to come to the panel. I start with the speakers from the governments. First, we have Mrs. Petra Olsen, Director of the Net Zero Innovation. Hi, Petra. Mr. Felix William Fentebella, Undersecretary, Department of Energy of the Philippines. Mr. Hans Olaf Ibrecht, Special Envoy Climate and Security Section for the Energy, Climate and Food Security Norway. From the private sector, also please come to the panel. We have Mr. Jakob Lau-Holst, the CEO of the Global Wind Organization. Mr. Michael Hannibal, Partner Copenhagen Infrastructure Partners. Mr. Jonathan Cole, CEO Coreo Generation. Mr. Morten Dierholm, Group Senior Vice President of Vestas. And last, and of course not least, Mr. Stefan Wieler, Managing Director of CCE Renewables. I just would like to start by asking our government representatives one question. Please be short, so we have about 3 minutes for each question. I think we start with Petter. We would like to understand your perspectives on government's role in enhancing workforce skills. What strategies can governments and the energy sector implement to develop a skilled and diverse workforce, ensuring the offshore wind industry meets the increasing demand for sustainable energy? Over to you, Petter.
Thank you, Roland. So in Australia, we have a 43% emission reduction target by 2030 and 82% renewable energy target by 2030. We're only currently 35% renewables, so to get from 35 to 82% in only 7 years is a huge lift. It's 9 times more renewables than we have now, which we achieved through solar and wind. So we know we have a massive skills shortage in Australia across our clean energy transition, but particularly in the offshore wind sector. So we had a report done by Jobs and Skills Australia that found that to meet our emissions reduction and renewable energy targets, we're going to need 32,000 more electricians. It's not just a shortfall in electricians, it's a shortfall in civil engineers, steel and welding traders. So when we think about this transition and the workforce we need, we have to consider our whole workforce, which is why Australia is a leading member in Equal 30, which aims to have 50% female representation in the clean energy workforce by 2030. And the wind energy sector really needs to think about that as well. We've got 50% of the population that we can skill up and trade, particularly in those trade roles. So what's government doing? We're currently doing a scoping study on our workforce policies as our first step to understand what is the landscape and how is this going to address our shortfalls. We've also established the Net Zero Authority, which is part of our central government agency that is to support workers who are in industries that will transition as part of a just transition framework. And what we've found is that there's a 57% overlap in the skills from the fossil fuels industry that can be transferred to the clean energy industry, particularly when we think about offshore oil and gas and how those skills apply to offshore wind. This includes our trades, but also maritime and engineering. So we need to be looking at the existing skill set and how we can transfer that across, not just about building out new skills. Our state governments, so Victoria in the south, which is our leader in offshore wind, is setting up the Wind Worker Training Centre, and they're also investing in the Global Wind Organisation certified courses. So we really welcome the standardisation of the certification systems internationally. I think this will play a role in how we can grow our domestic workforce, and we really welcome further consultation on that as well.
Thank you, Petter, for this insight. I will just go directly to Mr. Felix William Fontabella on his statement.
Thank you very much. The Green Jobs Act provides for a human resource development plan. So everything should be centered there. But what we found out is we also need international accreditation because we're not only looking into the local, but also the workforce that can serve the international community. So what we have learned in our earlier side event in the Philippine Pavilion, as we have listened to our other departments, is that there's a need for us to enhance our data locally and globally. Secondly, we have to have a lot of partnerships and align and have standards immediately. We also looked into an all-in-one package where a developer with certain requirements can contact one person that will have an entire team, not only of electricians, welders, and other workers, but have the entire team. It's called the all-in-one package. The idea is there, but it's not easy to implement, but we have to begin. And we also need to know where the workforce are, where their competencies are, and so the mapping is very significant. The alignment with kindergarten, DepEd, elementary and high school, and college and tech voc education is indeed very important. So the conversations towards an international standards that aligns all these is significant. The placement is there, and we need to utilize the tripartite, well-tested approach to employment, which is government, employers, and employees. Towards having industrial peace, we need to have this balance, and we have to train everyone now. And the Human Resource Development Plan is our key document that will enable us to implement all these.
Thank you very much, Mr. Fontabella. Over to you, Hans Olaf.
Thank you very much, Roland. First, the GOWA events are always the most energetic ones at the COP, so this has been great so far. Can we achieve SDG 7? I think the jury is still out. We will get some added momentum at this COP, hopefully. But the key question I'm always grappling with, do we have enough talent to do the job? And we already see this in several markets, that we don't have enough technicians and engineers to roll out the renewable energy technologies that we need. So what can we do? I've not heard anyone mention it, so I'm going to do it. As a father, I failed. I have a 24-year-old and a 22-year-old. Did they enter STEM? No. They opted for some other education. Their mother is working for the Ministry of Energy, and I'm working for Foreign Affairs, running around working on SDG 7. So obviously we have not trained them very well during the dinner table. So they went into STEM education because they opted for business rather than STEM. So we as fathers and mothers, we also have a duty to play here, in the sense, or a task to play here. We need to encourage our children to pursue this education, because it's going to be attractive in the future, and this is the future. So what can we as governments do? Of course, we need concerted policies from the government, but at the same time, there are many sectors that need talent. Of course, we all have an elderly population, at least in my part of the world, and it's going to be competition for this talent. So that's why I'm also looking forward to hear the needs from the industry, because we need to listen to the needs of the industry. We also need to build on expertise in industry we have, and Norway is a large energy nation, and we have the expertise in the industry. Now our main challenge will be to switch and to build on the energy industry that we have and transition to green solutions. So the industry needs to tell us clearly what they need, and that's going to be a segue to the next, to my colleagues sitting next to me. We have launched an initiative in Norway called Wind Corp. It's a cooperation between the Federation of Industries, its companies, and also universities that actually is going to tell us what kind of requirements and what kind of needs they would have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Hans Olaf. Before I go to the private sector, just summarizing, it is very clear there is an agreement. Talent is needed to basically have the workforce of the future, to do the tripling also for the renewable energy. It is important to identify the gap, let's say, between the workforce that is in place and the workforce we need in the future in terms of quality and quantity. And it was also very clear, for this we need international cooperation to identify standards and accreditation to make sure the right workforce is trained well and is in place. And as Hans Olaf said, so the private sector has to say what they need to help the governments to implement what is needed. So now coming to the questions related to the private sector. So given what we just heard, I would like to turn now to the private sector and talk about implementation. I would like to know what the key challenge you anticipate in the rollout of the standardized certification system, and what measures can be adopted to mitigate these challenges, ensuring the initiative's success. We would start then with Mr. Jakob Lau-Holst, the CEO from the Global Wind Organization. Please.
Well, thank you, and thank you for this opportunity to be here, and thank you for the recognition of Global Wind Organization from governments. We've been working with industry, and most of these companies are members of Global Wind Organization, setting the standards for about 10 years. We started out actually with a little bit closer to the heart with the safety of the technicians working out there, because when you're working offshore, safety must be a priority. And back in the day, all of the companies would have their own safety training for all of the technicians. So we realized very soon that that was a waste of time and resources, and created common and aligned safety training standards for the industry. Now fast forward 10 years later, we are here where we have a system of delivery of standardized training where we know that the technicians are competent and safe to do their jobs, where we also know they have the technical skills to do the things, and we have a delivery system where in 50 countries, more than 500 education institutions around the world are delivering training to. This year, we just passed 100,000 individuals who are trained. 100,000, that sounds like a lot, but when we look at our forecasting, we're looking at just for the construction, installation, service, maintenance bit, which is the bit where people tend to travel and work for various companies at the same time. We need more than 570,000 by 2027. And if we're tripling up, our back of the envelope calculation says that's more than 700,000. And by 2030, we're closer to 1 million of those. And all of those needs to travel. They need to be able to travel because that's the nature of this business. And so my message here to governments is recognize what's already there, what's already considered good, invest in that, because we need the public sector to help us to build that workforce. More than half of those people that I'm talking about are coming to be new entrants, so future generations of wind technicians that have skills. They don't necessarily have to be engineers, but technicians with technical skills, electricians, mechanical skills. And we have the delivery system, we have the standards, but the public sector vocational training needs to help us build that workforce for the future. And if there's one thing, I mean, all of today has been about collaboration is at the heart of our success. And I think that's what we also want to do, collaboration with governments. And I hope that this initiative, Jobs for Re, is a beginning of a long collaboration with governments on delivering the workforce for our future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jacob. Next speaker is Michael Hannibal from the Copenhagen Infrastructure Partners. Over to you.
This one should work, yeah. Yeah, Copenhagen Infrastructure Partner is a global developer and investor into the green transition. I joined CIP in 2017. Before that, I have lived my life in offshore wind, so have had more than 20 years in offshore wind. It has been a remarkable journey with the offshore wind, and what I think the offshore wind have been really good at is adapting, and basically adapting into new challenges and opportunities. The tripling up will not be easy, and there will be some who will be naysayers, this you cannot do. I'm absolutely convinced that jointly we can do that. And there are people looking in hardly how to make sure that the blue collar side is actually getting there. Like Jacob just explained, there will be a need, a lot of those. But we should not forget that there will also be a lot of need for white collars to actually run the construction sites, to actually do this part. In that part, CIP have engaged ourselves into a e-learning company that who basically are now sitting down and doing e-learning courses and trainings, because also there we need thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people coming into doing that part. So it will be a challenge, but it's also something that I'm absolutely sure and convinced that we jointly will overcome and then roll out as expected.
Thank you very much, Michael. I'm going further to Jonathan Cole from the CEO of Choreo Generation.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you to all those who've persevered. We talk a lot at events like this about skills and about the just transition and the orderly transition. And somehow they all come hand in hand. And so I really just want to make one point. In our industry, offshore wind, for more than a decade, we've been very receptive to adjacent workers from brown industries, from carbon-intensive industries, from oil and gas, to come and work in our industry. And the truth is, from time to time, we've seen interest, right? But the reality is that the incentives and the barriers and the pull from our industry hasn't been strong enough. And actually, the incentives on that industry to come in haven't been enduring enough. And as soon as the oil price goes back up, there's a retreat back. The pull is too great back to their own industry. So there's one thing we can do in this conference that can really help change that dynamic. It is the language on phasing out of fossil fuels, because then you get a very clear signal that this transition is not just an economic stopgap, it is an existential matter for the people in those industries. And that's why conferences like this really matter and really change the skills equation, because sending that signal with phase-out language will set the right tone for those companies to come to our industry, and we will welcome them with open arms, and then we can work easily on the barriers and the incentives and all the things we need to do to keep them here. So that's the key message. Phasing out matters. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Then to Morten Dierholm, the Group Senior Vice President of Vestas, please.
Thank you. And you get all, once we go through a session like this, you get sweaty when you sit here and you're one of the guys that has to build all the turbines. I mean, I can't recall how many hundreds of gigawatts we had on stage just a minute ago when all the countries went through it. First of all, I mean, it's fantastic, right? I mean, it's still a nascent industry somehow, offshore wind, and now we're looking at a full-speed globalization of this technology, and there's nothing we want more, Jonathan, that would give us more pleasure than to steal all these oil and gas workers and turn them into a force for good. That is absolutely essential. The whole question of standardization, I think Jakob is much better at answering that, but for our sake at least, we will try and standardize as much as we can on the product side to meet all that demand. I mean, we are out pretty vigorously calling for a bit of a slower arms race in the industry to make sure that the turbines we have in the market now, that we can make them effective and that we can modularize them and standardize them as much as possible, so it doesn't become new technology all the time, because that will hinder a lot of the deployment, massive deployment that we're looking right into. I will say though one thing here before I give the microphone on here. I'm not so pessimistic in terms of our ability to deliver. I mean, we have proven in the wind industry again and again, when we have seen these curves, drastic growth curves, we can deliver the technology. It all, of course, depends on the business case. And the industry has shown pretty resilient. Whenever there's a business case, we invest. And the minute, all of these hundreds and hundreds of gigawatts that are now up in the air, they start to become reality. We take investment decisions based on that. And so obviously GWA published a report that says we'll have some bottlenecks in 26, but that's based on the current business case roadmap we can see into as an industry. The minute we flip that and we can see all those projects becoming reality, we will be there. So I think that's the positive message from us.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Morten. Then Stefan Wieler, Managing Director of SSSE Renewables.
Sure, it's great to be here. Just to maybe build on that ambition. At SSE, we've been involved in renewable energy now for nearly 100 years. Started in the Great Glens of northern Scotland, all the way through now to building some of the largest offshore wind farms in the world. And we're very much at the coal face of the challenges we're talking about. Only last month, together with our partners Total, we completed the construction of the deepest water offshore wind farm at Seagreen. We're currently working with our partner Equinor and Fagron, building what will be the largest offshore wind farm at Dogger Bank. And the reason I mention those is because there's one common theme that actually turns that ambition into action, and that's human ingenuity. So what we are all talking about is actually the impact people right across our business are having. And I agree with all my esteemed colleagues here today, particularly what Jonathan was talking about in terms of oil and gas. We're fortunate right now, of the 5,000 or so people we've hired over the last number of years, 40% have been from oil and gas. But to Jonathan's point, that has been temporary, and that's where you combine ambition, you combine ingenuity, you combine this massive opportunity going forward. That is a very attractive place for the workforce of the future to come from. From our part, and without trying to repeat anything that anyone else has said, one of the areas that we're very focused on driving that ingenuity is actually at a local level with universities, whether it's in Scotland, in the UK, whether it's in Ireland, whether it's across Europe. Working with universities at a very early stage, identifying the opportunity, working together in terms of skill programs. Standardization is absolutely common to that. That is something where we are seeing some success, and hopefully it will continue to build, because coming out of COP here, we should be coming out here very confident, very ambitious, but with a clear mindset. It's now about turning that ambition into action, and to do that we need lots of skilled people right across the globe, and that's something we should be really delivering and pushing hard for.
Thank you very much. Just to summarize briefly, it's very clear. So the government say we need to have a better understanding what the gap of the workforce is, what skills does the private sector really need, but governments are willing to support this. Also, the private sector appreciates this initiative to strengthen the workforce. There is an understanding that the tripling of the renewable energy capacity needs this workforce, but the industry is also looking into ways in modelizing, standardizing, let's say, the technology part, and we have to, let's say, find ways to more specifically define what is needed, and then to cooperate and find ways to build this global workforce in terms of quality and quantity, and make sure there is a level of accreditation, certification, because security and safety comes first. So that brings an opportunity. I would like to close here and hand over and back to Ben Beckwell. Thank you very much. A hand to the panel.
Thank you, Roland. Thank you very much, Roland. Really, I think this has been a really energetic session. Thank you, all of my friends here, for sticking with it and going through this session. Has been a tremendously energetic session. I hope people can get at least a coffee or a bite to eat ahead of the rest of your, I'm sure, very, very busy days. So, I think Morten has really given the right message here. We can do this. We just need the pathway to follow, and we're very, very positive about the pathway that we're now getting from governments through GOWA and people joining GOWA. So we're up for this challenge. There's a further session on offshore wind for those of you who are interested, starting soon. GWEC, together with a number of partners, is going to launch the Ocean Energy Pathways, which is a technical assistance program to try and help get some of this stuff done. So very welcome to stay for that as well. Thank you again.